On today's episode of the Devon Messinger Show, we're previewing and predicting number 22 Texas versus Mississippi State. Longhorns fans, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. It's greatly appreciated, and check us out at HornSports.com for all the latest in Texas news. As always, we have some basic game info to start. The game is Saturday, the 25th of October at 3:15 p.m. Central Time at Davis Wade Stadium in Starkville, Mississippi. JC, the game got pushed, so to speak, to the SEC network, and I think it's very deserving after this past Kentucky game, which I'm sure we'll talk all about later. Texas, the line moves, of course, but Texas
Yeah,
favorite 6.5 points. But I don't know if anyone is
all I got is
picking Texas by a touchdown after what they saw. But we'll talk about it. We'll dive in. But JC, any overall thoughts to start us off here? Whether that be about Mississippi State or about some of the Kentucky performance.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, first off, this game should be on ESPN's The Ocho. I think that's where it rightfully belongs to be due to the recent performance of the Texas Longhorns. I do think it's funny that today it's your Wi-Fi that's giving us the issues. So hoping you can still hear me and you're still with me there, Devin. Overall, from the Kentucky performance, I mean, no, say you take two steps forward and three steps back is seeming to be a repeat kind of situation happening for the Texas Longhorns this year. It happened in week 3. It's happened once again, and if it happens one more time, it's going to happen against Georgia. Or it's going to happen against Vanderbilt, and it's hard to feel a lot of confidence about this offense being able to generate anything for the rest of the season. I'm being fully transparent with you. I have minimal trust. Starts at the line, that starts at the center, goes to the running backs, and it goes to the wide receivers, and it goes to all facets, lays down, and it is increasingly concerning and worrying every day. And I think we'll get to that more and more as the talk goes. But what do you think, Devin?
Yeah, I think ESPN 8, the Ocho, might be still a little bit of a stretch. If you had an ESPN 12, I think that'd be a little more fitting. No, I think, like you're saying, defensively, you can't really fault Texas for anything in that Kentucky game, and they only allowed 13 points. That includes the OT period in which they came up with a big stop. Of course, there were some drives where it just wasn't pretty, but they were also on the field for the majority of the game. Then offensively, I mean, we'll talk about it more later. Nothing is really going right, period. So, I mean, let's talk about Mississippi State. Let's give them their flowers, and then we can talk about whether Texas deserves any after last weekend's performance. At quarterback, are you having deja vu or am I? Blake
Yeah.
Shapen, the former Baylor quarterback. Yes, we're talking about Baylor here. He leads the way for the Bulldogs. Just over 1,500 yards on the season, 9 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, which isn't super solid, but of course the ratio's in the right direction there. But he has completed 67% of his passes. Now, JC, if you really like your deja vu, let's break down this receiving core for the Bulldogs because their leading receiver is Brennan Thompson, who at this point is a senior. Now, why
No
does that
kidding.
name
Yeah.
sound so familiar, JC? Well, he used to be a Texas Longhorn. For a time, he was an Oklahoma Sooner, and now he is in Mississippi State, just doing his thing. He's got
What? Oh my
a
gosh.
500 plus yards, 533 yards, 4 touchdowns. Another star for them, Anthony Evans, the third transfer from Georgia, just under 500 yards at 471 and 2 touchdowns. Those are really the two notable guys in the passing game. And then at running back, you kind of see a split there. You got Devon Booth, who is the lesser of the two in terms of yards, 371 yards, but 6 touchdowns on the ground. Then lastly, sophomore Fluff Bothwell. Isn't that a beautiful name? That just rolls off the tongue. 465 yards, also 6 touchdowns. So it's kind of a longest yard feel, I feel like, to this lineup, just in terms of JC random names and faces. It's not quite the Adam Sandler cast, but you've got people that have transferred from different schools, different conferences, but they've come together. Mississippi State, not a beautiful university in terms of production this year, 4-3, 0-3 in SEC play. But it's not for lack of effort. They've kept things close. But is there anything offensively or just in those names, such as Brendan Thompson, that excites you? Or is this going to be a revenge tour for the former UT player?
Honestly, there is kind of a lot to like about Mississippi State's rushing attack. I will say that Fluff Bothwell, Jeff Levy did say today that it is a long shot that he is going to see the field. I do think if you're a Texas fan, you can take a sigh of relief. 84 carries, 465 yards, 6 touchdowns, and that's also considering he hasn't played the last 2 weeks now. So kind of a big deal just how much he was dominating that early portion of the season. Talking a little bit about Devin Booth, he's still a strong back. Mississippi State's rushing attack is still doing 178 yards per game. Texas run D, yeah, their hands. They're holding opponents to 84 yards a game, so almost 100 more that's coming at you from Mississippi State. So this is a big test for our run D, and it's a little bit of concern. It makes me think about what happened to Florida just 2 weeks ago when time and time again that run D was just beat off the line and pushed and bullied. So definitely a little bit worried there. Brennan Thompson, Anthony Evans making up 56% of all catches, 63% of all receiving yards, and 60% of all touchdowns. That's all you got to focus on right there. And I think that it's Texas' priority, giving all your attention to these three main guys. And you know what? I think if you can shut down the run D and your defense, your secondary, which I know we'll talk about in a second, the X factors, put them on the line, make Shapen go and beat you. I feel okay. I think I can say I feel very confident in the play of our defense. But as far as wide receivers go and running backs, for sure, Booth and Thompson Evans are going to be the primary people giving it a go on Saturday. But truthfully, I'm really most excited for that Mississippi State rushing offense versus that Texas run D matchup. I think that's going to be a big telltale sign of the game.
Yeah, and if Fluff can't go, JC, that's big news, especially for Texas. I know being without Michael Taft, most likely, unless he somehow plays through a thumb surgery, which I highly doubt, probably going to miss a good portion of the year. But I'm not a doctor, so we'll let the doctors do the talking and see what the report is when that comes out. But on the defensive side for Mississippi State, really quickly, it's just an interesting group, JC, because there's a bit of a dichotomy here. You've got the 106 best or worst, depending on how you want to frame that, team in terms of sack production. They're not getting the quarterback to the ground too often, 1.3 sacks per game. But in the secondary, they have the sixth most interceptions. What is the thing to note here, though?
Yes.
Let's remember who they're playing. They're playing the Texas Longhorns, who like Arch Manning being under pressure. Of course, there's been some changes on the O-line, but there's not been any change in terms of the production that you're seeing from that unit. So while Mississippi State near one of the worst in terms of getting to the quarterback, JC, I think they're going to see their numbers probably uptick here just a little bit. And I know that's a big part due to the offensive line, but Arch does shoulder some of that blame too, because at times he's just not getting the ball out quick enough. But I just wanted to shout out in the secondary for Mississippi State, Brylan Lanier, 3 interceptions on the year already. So watch out in terms of the turnover battle. While they might not be getting the absolute most pressure that they've faced this year, they're probably still just going to have to deal with that given some that you've seen on the field. And then lastly, I want to switch back to the Mississippi State offense. So let's change our frame of mind here. Their O-line has allowed almost 3 sacks a year, 2.67, which is 113th in the nation. So I know you're talking about that Texas run defense. The offensive line, for Mississippi State, not a great bunch so far either. So also in the pass rush, expect to see some numbers. I know Colin Simmons had 3 sacks against Kentucky. And just to dive into that game a little bit more, JC, overall, what is your takeaway? I know we're going to have a danger level later for this game, but how stressed were you during that, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, or just put it for us in words as kindly as you can?
Wait, I'm so sorry on that one, Devin. You did cut out a little bit.
I
What was that
glitched.
last part?
Just how are you feeling after the Kentucky game? What did you see?
Ooh, I'm gonna go ahead and say, give me your best thoughts on Kentucky in the kindest words possible. I'm going to assume
Perfect.
that's what I heard based
Yes,
off of this
yes.
couple of glitches.
Oh boy.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, it's got to change, man, and it's gonna have to change immediately after this season. Texas O line needs to be active in the portal. I know, Sark did come out and say to yesterday in his press conference that he would never consider giving up play calling duties. And as frustrated as I have been with Sark throughout the season for what he's dialed up, a lot of times he, kind of relies on the same sort of three plays, and he falls back on what old reliable, what worked what did work with Quinn Ewers is not working with Arch Manning now. But I think as much as you can fault Sark, you have to fault the quarterback. It's mis- feels
You're,
like we get two good games and then we get just one absolutely abhorrent 25 QBR game, just like we did against Kentucky. And you're what, 7 games into the season now, 10 games into your career. You can't be missing throws like that one you missed at Endries. You can't be overshooting Ryan Wingo on 3rd and 5. It's just too many mistakes. And yeah, to an extent, you can definitely blame that on our offensive line, especially left guard play. Calling out the left guard. Good God, what are we doing? But more importantly, I mean, it's if not now, then when for Arch? You got to just step up and deliver those throws. And I think that, it's been enough time this season. He's shown enough, just like he did against Oklahoma, that, he deserves all the fair criticism of what's happening in his play right now. But on the same token, quarterback's not getting it done. That run game was abhorrent for Texas, going 28 for 47, and that O line just had pressure every single time. It felt like Arch was ready to throw. Overall, it's just the offense as a whole needs to take a step back at the end of this season. We need to evaluate what went wrong, and I'll say it. I think Ark owes a little bit of grace if this season doesn't end up being the expectation that had. I think we owe it to him to recalibrate and retool his coaching staff this offseason. And I'm not going to lie, I would definitely like to see some changes, specifically regarding with the O line and potentially some running back changes too, maybe at the position with the coach. And the one group that we're not talking about that also deserves as much criticism is the wide receivers. I mean, Parker Livingston, not a knock on him, but he really has just fallen out of the offense the last 2 weeks. And our leading receiver 7 weeks into the year can't have 300 yards. So just, it's just awful. It's bad all around. It's concerning, and it's unfortunate because we're probably wasting the best defense we've had in the Sarkisian era, right?
yeah,
Definitely a lot of cause for concern. Yeah, that's all
yeah,
I got
yeah.
to
No,
say.
I mean that's all fair criticism. And JC, I mean, even some fight from the receivers. I mean, I haven't really seen that from some guys. I don't want to name names, but it's just when they're open, they can't get the ball. I mean, that's an arch criticism, of course. And then when he puts it in their vicinity, at times I feel like it doesn't even look like some of the guys are trying as hard as they could. Now, I know times are tough, but you shouldn't let kind of the frustration bleed into your performance. And I think you even see that from Arch Manning himself because just looking into his eyes, from the cameras during these games, it doesn't look like he's fully present, and it just looks like he's pressing too hard and stressing himself out more than he needs to be. Now, of course, the Longhorn faithful is doing that for him, JC. He doesn't need to be doing that to himself, but just relaxing and taking a deep breath and playing loose. Because I know we talked about it multiple times now. It seems like every other week Sark talks about Arch is best when he's playing loose, and it just looks like he's super wound up. And I know he does his shoulder thing that everyone likes to joke about. Maybe his shoulder's injured. It just
Yeah,
seems like he's doing it to himself too. You can see, he's a little tight. Maybe we need a masseuse, a team masseuse to get everybody ready, loose, and calm, collected, focused. We talked about Arch. I did want to talk about Quintravion Wisner. I mean, just 12 carries, 37 yards.
okay.
One touchdown is what they awarded him, but I'm giving that to DJ Campbell for falling on that in the end zone. And I
There we go.
know,
There we go.
yeah, I'm going to give credit where it's due. DJ was the one guy that could recover a fumble against Kentucky, and it was offensively. But we were given Arch his
That was
share.
tough.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. We were given Arch his blame. Sark, Play calling, like you said, I usually agree with in terms of I think Sark is a fine play caller at times. Seems like just the mindset or game plan going into these weeks has been a bit off in terms of Kentucky just committed to the pass all the way. I know we talked about Kentucky being a great, I think, run defense, or not great run defense, but a better run defense than they were a pass defense. And so I think Sark probably was doing the same, sort of things that we were doing and looking at the numbers and, oh, Kentucky is going to let up some yards through the air, but you got to be able to invest in your running game at some point when the pass is not working out. And you really didn't see any effort in terms of letting Wisner have some extra carries. Quarterback power. Oh, don't even get me started. It was ugly. Arch is not a quarterback power guy. But also, while the Kentucky pass defense wasn't great, you got to remember that the Texas pass block is pretty poor. So you add up a couple factors, and it just made for a, let's say, dirty game. And then receivers, we talked about. No one wowed me, not entirely their fault. Endries finally showed up in terms of at least I saw him involved in a play, and Arch couldn't hit him. I mean, it looked like a touchdown. Minimum, it was a big chunk yardage play. Did not happen. And then O-line, it was bad. I mean, JC, is it time to hit the panic button? I know you're talking about maybe transfer portal later, but is there anything now that you think is even possible, or is it just you're going to have to live with what you've got in terms of performance and expectations?
It's if it hasn't changed now, it's not changing this year. It's gonna have to be. We're gonna have to roll out with what we got. There needs to be growth from Brooks. There needs to be growth from Baxter. DJ Campbell at times has not played like the veteran leader that he is on this team. There's of course been the injuries, which we didn't talk about as much last week. But once Hudson got hurt and then Robinson too, that kind of came up in the back half of the week. Injuries have already decimated such a poor line. And I feel like in the beginning of the year, we wanted to talk about was it Kojo when he went out for the season with an early injury in summer ball. We thought that was a huge make or break difference just in terms of depth. I don't know how much more that could have helped the line at this point in the year. Just from what I've seen, it's really concerning. Texas the last 2 years have had a top 15 offensive line in terms of pass protection efficiency. I believe it was number 4 last year and like 9 the year prior. This year we're 125th. So at the end of the day, the worst O line we've had in the Sarkisian era, and that's just purely from stats, and that's also from what you see on the field. That they're getting bullied by these undersized linemen both ways. Passing game and the run blocking game. They just can't do anything, and I think that's really impacting Manning to an extent. And he doesn't have Kelvin Banks back there with him. He doesn't have Hayden Connor. He doesn't have Jake Majors. He's got 2 seconds to throw this ball. So I think that whatever happens this season, reload the clip and keep building around Manning because he's shown that he can make those NFL level throws. But I mean, he's missing the easy ones. But yes, his offensive line needs to change, but it's not going to happen.
Well, I think the tough part is you
At
can't
this point in the year,
you can't
it's
rely
going
on
to be
anything.
let's keep our QB healthy.
Yeah, I think you got to keep him healthy, and like you said, it's tough because you want to build around Arch, but you haven't even seen that. You've seen flashes, but it's been way too inconsistent to
Yeah.
tell a fan that hey, it's gonna be okay. Like let's just build around Arch, and that's the tough part because Arch hasn't had any really game changing playmakers around him this year in terms of when they have an opportunity, just blowing the roof off of a play, blowing the top off. Just hasn't happened now. Arch has had way too many times where when the receiver is open and has that opportunity, it just hasn't worked out. And so if you're a Texas fan, it's tough because you can't hang your hat on anything. You can't say, we are a really good running team. We are a really good passing team. Can't even say like we are a really good running team in this scenario or opportunity because it just hasn't been consistent either way. And Wisner has been playing pretty beat up. So this is not me like throwing shade at Wisner. CJ Baxter, of course, has been out with an injury. I mean, there's other guys, Christian Clark and Simon, that have stepped up. And you even hear, of course, the reports that Michael Terry is now in the running back room just to help with depth. And that's an opportunity for him to potentially see the field. I mean, it's a rotating door there, but for this team, you have had no consistent aspects of offense, period. And like you said, it's probably the worst offense we've seen from a Sarkisian team. I mean, even Casey Thompson led teams, and even some Hudson Card, you know, I said led games have felt better. Now I know we've all watched the Arkansas game from the
Yeah,
past, so maybe
Hudson
that's a
Card. Yeah,
stretch. But Casey Thompson looks better in terms of passing the ball, and it's something that I know Arch can do because, like you said, we've seen it before. We just haven't seen it consistently. So that's a difficult part. If you're Sark, he's kind of play called some of these guys open, and when he has, it just hasn't really worked out. And so it's a tough spot to be
Yep.
in because he's being asked about his play calling abilities, as JC mentioned earlier, and you really can't have a great answer for that because yeah, in the Kentucky game, I agree, probably should have shied away from the pass a lot earlier, JC. But then at times when he gets somebody wide open, I mean, it comes down to the players making the plays, and it's the coach's job to take the fall. I just wanted to get into the positive really quick because I know it's already been a Debbie Downer episode. This Texas defense. I mean, Colin Simmons, I called for him to wake up, right? He had the wanted poster. Where have you been, Colin Simmons? Right there with Jack Endries. Well, he's been found, okay? The problem is the authorities weren't able to get him because Colin Simmons is just too dominant, okay? 3 sacks against Kentucky. Anthony Hill, my boy, I believe it was 12 tackles, an interception. Just stellar play from really the 2 biggest recruits that Texas could have gotten in recent years. And they just don't continue to stop. And then special teams, I've called him out, week in, week out in the early season, and he answered the call. I love
Go
it.
Shipley.
No, Shipley for sure, but let's not jump the gun now. Ryan Niblett, I called him out week 1, week 2, week 3, just letting these bounce. I think Jeff Banks got in his ear, and he probably took it a little too seriously when he said to take out every single punt because some of these are now borderline crazy, but that's what I've been asking for. And Niblett has been Texas's best offensive player, I feel like, these past 2 weeks. And Mason Shipley, I know I've heard others say it. If he was on this team last year, oh boy, would things potentially have been different? 3 for 3. Probably Texas' best offensive player in actuality. I know Niblett sets him up, but Shipley was the one that was scoring those points. And yeah, JC, any last thoughts on Kentucky? Or should I move forward back to the Mississippi State points?
Hey, you forgot to give love to our third aspect of special teams, Mr. Jack Bowmeister,
Our
coming
boy.
in with 8 punts, 42, but more importantly, 6 that were down inside the 20. I mean, it's a field position game, and when Texas is getting 4 plays of possession, keep having a punt, he was Mr. Consistency all night in terms of dropping that ball and setting up the defense in as favorable of a position as they could have been. So, for sure, I'm in on Jack, and no touchbacks either. Also important to make note of. So, overall, I mean, if not Shipley, if not Jack, if not Niblett, we're having a completely different conversation about this team right now. So,
Oh,
for
for
sure,
sure.
big shout out to all our special teams guys.
JC had to get that in there. Yes, it's a complimentary game, and right now it's been a 2/3 complimentary. Once the third unit, that offense comes together, expect results. And I just want to talk real briefly about Mississippi State here before we move to X factors. Their scoring offense, 43rd in the nation, very solid actually for this Bulldog team. I know we talked about them being 4-3 on the year, but it's a good 4-3 team. This is not a crummy opponent. The passing offense has been about middle America, 89th in passing, 211.2 yards per game. So not amazing, a little bit lower on the side of mediocrity there. But the running, JC mentioned it, the rushing offense, 44th in the country. So Mississippi State's been really good at running the ball, even despite some injuries that he was mentioning earlier. And then defensively, 39th in the country in points allowed per game, just under 20 points. 39th, pretty solid there, especially you wouldn't expect that from Mississippi State. Their passing defense, 24th in the country. Meanwhile, the rushing defense 100th in the country. And so that might be a little foreshadowing for what I'm about to talk about here. But this team is a really solid unit, and as much as we talked about Kentucky, that's more so setting some framing and looking at the expectations heading into this game, But this Mississippi State team is no team to really ignore. So now we're moving into the X factors. JC, who needs to step up here, whether that be for Texas or for Mississippi State?
I'm going to go ahead and assume now is my key right there. So I'll jump right in. Yeah, we got a couple X factors. And first off, it's going to be the health of these running backs. Is Fluff going to be good to go? Is Cedric Baxter going to be good to go? Once again, I'm going to talk about that Texas defense more so as a whole. Blake Shapen, he's been taking the ground 20 times this year. Texas, 10 sacks in the last 2 games. Go get 5 more. Go make it tough on Shapen and make him uncomfortable. And I think that if our defensive line can control the game, especially in terms of possession and in terms of yardage, when it gets down to that 2nd and 8, 2nd and 7, rather than 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, make them uncomfortable, make them force you to beat you on the throw on 3rd down. I feel a lot better about Texas getting a chance this game. With that being said, on the other side of the ball, at Texas O-line, last game, man. I mean, what are we going to do here? I mean, this O-line really needs to step up and play just like they did against Oklahoma if we do want a chance in this game. And if O-line holds up, Mr. Arch Manning got to start to convert some 3rd down. I definitely wrote down 3rd down as our biggest X factor of the game. In terms of QBR and really passing yards, Apin and Archer are pretty similar. Manning stands, and the reason I feel like Texas can pull this off, which is crazy to say against Mississippi State. No disrespect towards them, but that's a wild thing to be saying considering where we thought we were going to be 3 months ago. Arch protects the ball really well. I think that Arch does an exceptional job of navigating the pocket. I think he does a good job of not forcing throws if they're not there the last week. So I trust him to keep making smart throws, and if he can just deliver on 6 or 7 more passes a game, 6 or 7 more completions, that's an extra couple points on the board. Glad you liked that reference, but this is going to be a game of 3rd downs.
I think JC is broadcasting it really from the Middle East again this time. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. We got most of the points in there. I mean, perfect. Not to cut you off, buddy. Yeah, Arch Manning and Texas O-line in terms of the offensive side, definitely an important group. And that's actually what I wrote down as my X factor, but I'm going to make an audible. We're going to show some intelligence at the line. I'm communicating. I'm going to make an audible, but I'm going to talk to your point and just first to make sure it's all hammered down. I think the reason why the offensive line and Arch Manning is such a big X factor on Saturday, of course, their play aside, is you're in Starkville, Mississippi, and those cowbells are dang loud, JC. And I think a problem for this team has been a lack of communication, and it's kind of a blank word when you just say it, unless you're really with the team and on the field. It's hard to really know what's being said and what's going on, but there's been plenty of times where just offensively in the pass protection, it's looked like blown coverage, so to speak. And you got to be making sure that everyone is speaking the same language. And honestly, at times it looked like Arch was calling it out where everyone was understanding, but it just, when it came down to blocking the guys, they were whiffing. And you're going to need to see a better job of that, of course. But again, it's going to be even louder, most likely, in Mississippi than it was Kentucky, which is saying something. So you're going to have to win, I think, on early downs. I know you're talking about 3rd down, which is, of course, probably the most important down. But every single play, it seemed like on first, Texas was either gaining 2 or just not moving the ball, period. And you're not going to win a lot of 3rd downs when you're ending up in 2nd and 9 and then 3rd and 7, right? When was the last time my roommate, we're going to bring him up here, Tommy was mentioning to me, JC, that when was the last time, we got him in the call here, when was the last time Texas got a 1st down on 1st down? When did they move the sticks right from the get-go. I don't think I saw it against Kentucky. It maybe happened once or twice against Oklahoma, but really it hurts my brain to try to even think about that because I don't remember right off the top of my head. And this is an offense in terms of going into the season where we're not necessarily expecting fireworks, but you're expecting production. And good offenses move the ball early on first down. Again, they move the sticks without even having to wait to third down. Too often, every single series of just downs, it's 3rd and 8. Then you convert somehow. Then it's 3rd and 9 and it's a punt. And the next series of plays, 3rd and 7, turnover. It just hasn't been pretty. I mean, I don't even want to go through all those scenarios because it has not been great. But long story short, my X factor is not Arch. It is the running backs for Texas because, again, I mentioned earlier, rushing defense for Mississippi State, 100th in the country. You're going to have to take advantage of a poor just rush D. Wisner, I know he's playing banged up. He's going to have to be able to move the sticks on all downs, as we mentioned, but also just get chunk yardage on first to set up those third and manageables. So that's my X factor for this one. Now we're going to the danger level. JC, danger level. Is it time to break the bank, or am I maybe jumping off a little too early here?
No, I think it's to quote the great SNL skit, I actually don't need more cowbell this weekend. I can do with that. I think your communication point was great. I think that's something that's been really overlooked. And I think penalties are going to be one of the biggest factors in this game. It's going to be who's got the least amount of penalties and who can get the other team off the field faster, vice versa, who can stay on the longest. And Texas had these long, sustainable drives like they did against Oklahoma. And I don't know if they can. I think that if I don't see Texas pick up a couple early first downs, maybe even score a touchdown in the first quarter, I'm not feeling great about the game. I think a lot of it will come down to health of running backs this week. Weisner's clearly banged up, and if Baxter is not good to go, I'm gonna right now I'm saying this game is about a good 8, at a 7.5 and 8 danger level, and I wouldn't even necessarily consider it an upset if it happened. It just it hasn't been what we expected, and I still think this team can figure it out. But if not now, then win once again because we're pretty late, and so I'll go 8.
I think you stole my notes, so I don't have much even to add there. I'm giving it 8 as well in the danger level. And yeah, I mean, Texas does not need more cowbell this weekend, JC. It is going to be loud. And if anything, I don't know if they could communicate across an empty stadium at this point. It has just not been good. I think that the camera operator in the Kentucky game that kept on screwing up was doing Longhorn fans a favor because I don't think anyone should be watching this Texas offense. It has been ugly. It has been brutal. I could probably go more oppressive words, but I will spare everyone of my Alexa level, JC. It has just been ugly. So I'm going to go 8 here. It's a big environment. And like you said, at this point in the season, would it even be an upset with how Texas has played? They're the ranked team here, but are they even deserving of a ranked spot right now in the top 25? I would argue probably against that just with the inconsistencies. So I'm giving it an 8 as well in Starkville. Now finally, we're moving on to the score prediction. Texas, Mississippi State. JC, what's going to happen here on Saturday? Your score pick.
Ooh, I hope that one was for me. That was a big,
Your
ugly glitch right there.
Come on now.
Yeah, no, I heard it. We're just going through a bit of a glitch.
Yeah.
We got to figure out what's going on with the Wi-Fi in this building, man. Yeah, I've been wrong each time I pick against Texas. I hope I'm wrong again. With that being said, I do see us losing this weekend by a score of 14.
What was the final 14?
Yeah, 14-10, just a low
Okay.
stakes scoring game. Who's going to do the most in the third quarter?
Wow, that's even shocking to me, but I know how the Texas offense is played. Given the score I'm about to give, I think Texas will produce more than they did last weekend, JC, but even then, when trying to surmise how they would come to that in my head. I don't know how they're going to pass the 16 points that they had, even with the help of OT last week. I've got Texas going to the road and winning 24-20. However, it's just not been a good performance all around. And like JC said, it's not to be a hater. It just hasn't been a good year so far. And it might be overreacting, but I think we've been calling it as we see it every weekend. It's just, it wouldn't shock me if Mississippi State creates some havoc at home. We talked about them being, sixth in the country in interceptions. It just takes one or two extra turnovers and sitting on the ball for 8 to 10 minutes seemingly on an offensive drive and converting at the end of the day to really put Texas in a bad spot. I think Kentucky pretty much did that. I think Cutter Boley probably outplayed Arch, to be honest, last Saturday. Didn't do a lot, don't get me wrong there, but just keeping the drives alive. Kentucky really beat Texas in that time of possession battle. If Mississippi State can do that and score and, again, create one or two turnovers, I'm going to see a low-scoring affair as well. But I do somehow have Texas coming through 24-20. However, JC, that's contingent on Arch making the simple play. The simple play has been there for him this season, and honestly, even against some of the really rough opponents that you should be beating up on, it just has not clicked. I know the UTEP game, for example, was one that nobody really came out of looking good. And so maybe it's a bit much to even expect the win here on the road. This is still a Longhorn team that's talented defensively, though, so I'm really not putting my vote in for the offense. I'm putting my vote in for the defense. But I will note that if it's another weekend where it's a lot of time on the field, on the grass, I don't know if they can hold up twice, just because you're going to need a break offensively, and if you're not getting it, no defense is going to be winning a lot of games. I got the Longhorns 24-20 on the road, but more importantly than our picks and our negativity, JC. Oh my gosh, no, it might, one of us is going to be right, one of us is going to be wrong. More importantly than our picks, what do you think about Mississippi State? What's your score prediction for this Saturday? Check us out at HornSports.com, and as always, have a great rest of your day.